Hey everyone, I am here in Oklahoma City at the AT&T building, and there is actually a museum that I learned about just a few weeks ago. It's not something that's really well known, but it's a telephone museum. We're going to go inside and check it out. This is the entrance into the museum right here. You can see there's a switchboard operator right on the side of the entrance right there. And there's another switchboard operator right there looking into the museum through these windows here. It's not a very big museum, but there's a lot packed into this museum. So there's cases after cases. And it's just a progression through all of the years of the telephone, starting with the telegraph and working its way to the modern phone, cell phone.
When they came in later, with the lights, if that's the one, no, that's the bell. That's how she would ring the telephone, and that by this crank. And this one is the they put in lights, but you can see how much current that puts out.
Right.
And from that old wooden telephone, yeah, they really have to crank it and be enough, barely enough current to come over to the drop, as we call it, for the operator to know they made a call.
Okay.
But you can tell these magnetors say of the coils itself and how much current it puts out.
That's pretty neat. Is this where the ticket would go in?
Yeah,
so they would.
There's one of the tickets right there.
One of the tickets right there?
Yeah.
And then
you should start a conversation. To that end of the conversation, you'd pull that one, it'd put the time on there.
Ah, that's so fascinating.
And that's a bigger board, you can see. This is a larger town in here.
So this is a Tulsa station there. Interesting.
That's a pretty good sized board. That's a lot of telephone numbers there, and the old mouthpiece would come out to the operator. But he just said, I don't need it, or you can have it. And thank you. We just set it here.
I wonder where he had it all these years. It's in excellent shape.
I don't know, early 1900s, so I really don't know what
It's amazing.
how old it really is.
Yeah, it's in really good shape.
Hold these down on the, that you see there.
Okay.
But all of them have the weights on.
It's pretty neat to see that those are the weights that kind of pull the cable back down in there when it's not in use. This right here is an early payphone, and it's telling the story right here about the patent that William Gray had in 1889. You can see how archaic it looks now, even out of any payphones that you're used to seeing. But that's how you would use a payphone back then. Something that you don't see a lot of anymore are payphones. Now this is the style that I used to see when I was a kid. And now if you see them, usually those cords are cut, or there's bubble gum, or they've pried off the receiver or just tore them up. But most of the phone stations are just completely empty. And I can remember seeing things like this. They might be in the airport, bus stations, various places like that. But these are some earlier payphones, and the operator would listen in, and you had to deposit your money before you could make the call, and if you didn't, the operator would say, please deposit 25 cents or whatever it was. Whatever you needed to call cost a different amount. But if you placed a nickel in the machine, she could somehow tell that you placed a nickel, and she would say, please deposit 10 cents more or 25 cents more. There was no fooling her back in the day. These people were trained, and they made a different sound depending on the coin that was dropped in there. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. I have no idea what any of this is, but it's pretty interesting to look at.
Relays that's made by Western Electric out there that used on different equipment. And that's a crossbar switch. This is, well, it's an XY switch, what they call. We'll see some of them up here. And somebody donated all the
military field phones. Take a look at these shovels right here. They have a super long handle on them,
Yeah.
all the way down to the floor there.
You know, you need the Morse code that the depots use, and
Pretty cool.
yeah, you see the Western gun smoke and those today. They had the old telegraphs that they'd send the one or two wires running all the way across Indian country.
Right. How did you use these things? What were these deals? It says
Those old
teletypewriter?
Teletypes, yeah. Boy, you remember they had lots of teletypes back in the, which would make a tape, and yeah, that
Right
had
up
the
top.
wide paper like we have in front was the tapes, and had a lot of those from company to company, and that worked on telephone lines.
Mm-hmm. So it's just a way of communicating, almost like a early email type thing, almost, or something.
Exactly right, and they'd have a copy, and then they'd send a copy.
That's really neat. I've never seen one
But
of
boy,
those.
they were, those old ones, they took a lot of maintenance on those. Had what they call a ball with the letters in it, and I know they,
Oh, right up top there.
yeah, spent a lot of maintenance time. They
I've never
didn't
seen
work
those
too
before.
well. They came in with what the first step, your dial in the 50s. They took out the old telephones that you cranked and put in the dial. That's what a central office would look like. And we set this up, and here, this is what they call the line finder. You pick up the telephone. Remember, you'd have to get dial tone, and that means you were connected to the first one. You remember how to dial? Go ahead, that 497, yeah. And watch the switches. There they go.
Oh, that is so cool.
You used those a million times and didn't realize it. And the last one is the connector that puts it to ringing. And if you did it right, it'll ring. There you go.
Wow.
Pick it up and see if she's there.
Hello?
You're there.
Yeah.
It
A little
works.
staticky, but I'm there.
Then it'll drop off as soon as you hang up. And then they came in and
Oh, that was cool.
yeah,
We
no,
missed that.
It just dropped ready for another call. And then they came in, same thing, and then they put in the touchstone, and you can dial that, punch that 4972325 there, and it's a little faster. You get dial tone. Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
497.
497 2325.
Did it ring?
Hello?
Hello? That's pretty cool.
I didn't even hear it ring. But I tell you, there was a lot of maintenance to these, like that switch we saw down there, and you can tell how many.
Oh, okay.
West Electric made all this, and the relays, so many of them.
Wow.
And something was always breaking or out of adjustment, and an office like that was very, very, very noisy. With all the switches
Oh, I can only
going
imagine.
across, and this is the tools we had to work on it with, and I said the only thing that ever really works is that hammer.
Was that the last resort or the first resort?
That's the last resort of that hammer.
Wow.
But that was an 8-week school. I came to city with and went to school. But it was fun school. I really enjoyed it for about it. Had a good instructor and really enjoyed working on them.
Hey, Sarah, dial that one more time to get these things moving.
Yeah, you can catch it.
Yeah. You dial the phone, these little things move and keep track of the number that you're calling.
See if you can watch the relays operate. 2 more.
And that's what made the phone ring.
Yeah, that was the connector. Takes the last 2 digits and does the ringing.
Ringing it?
And sets
Yeah.
up the talk line.
Wow.
You had to pay extra because you'd try to go out to install it. You'd try to sell them a color phone, maybe $1 extra a month.
Oh, to get a phone? So you
Yeah,
didn't
and
actually own the phone, you're just renting it for $1 a month?
That was it. And the cord came out with the black cord, and you'd try to sell them a colored cord for probably 50 cents a month.
Oh, really? I never knew that.
But they sold a lot of these. Oh, we did. And then they came out with, these about the same time.
So these were rented as well? You didn't own
No,
these?
I think they were all rented. It's what I think. They installed them in your house. Now, if you left and moved to, you didn't pick up the phone and take it with you.
Because you lost a deposit or
Yeah,
something?
because the customer thought they did, but they really didn't at the time. But anymore, you just do.
Well, I remember we had a phone like this color and then maybe like a green color or something, but I didn't realize we had to rent those, I guess.
I know we did the Princess. I don't remember those. That was back in the 1950s when we were putting those in.
And I remember having ones like these. Yeah, did you rent these as well?
Yeah, the Princess.
All of these would be rented?
All the Princess were, I think, as I remember, were rented. They came out later with the touchstone. There's the dials and then the touchstone. I've still got one of those in the box at home.
I used to play with these so much, my mom would get mad because I'd just sit there and spin the dial. She's like, you're going to break that. 60s or something maybe? Donut telephone?
They're like green.
Yeah.
Yeah, those
pretty bright.
They're green when we put it in the kitchen. Those are what we call kitchen telephones. That hung on the wall in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't have one. We didn't have one with the dial on it
No.
like that. We had the touch tone with the 25-foot cord so you could go to the living room.
Yeah.
There's your 70s rust brown.
Oh, I remember having my grandparents had one of those so that they could see the buttons better. Which I think they were mad about. My mom bought it for my grandparents and they thought it was an insult. I definitely remember a lot of phones like these right here. Using those. And they didn't seem to last long was the other thing. They always seemed like they broke and never lasted. Because these would break and then we'd go back to an old telephone like this. Or like one of those because they lasted. They even have an old phone booth here with Superman's costume inside.
And it actually had a light in it, and a fan. You close the door, and the fan would come on, and
Oh, wow.
the light, and Superman, and
Yeah, Superman's right inside.
yeah.
This is a test desk where they would try to test and see that the lines were good.
Yeah, we stayed in and out there quite a bit. Went over to manual.
And this right here is an old military switchboard. It's right there.
Yeah, I've never seen one like that. I used some of those.
These are what they call stowaway phones. They're just in a wood box there, and I'm sure that some office executive had something like that. And these chest phones right there. Pretty interesting. Not something that you see anymore. Check out this phone. All those little knobs at the top. The bell system. And then this little handset. Never seen one of those. Some of the things in here, it surprises you. I never thought that I would see a wheelchair in here, but it says it's from the #1 toll board in Oklahoma City. So maybe they were sitting down so much and they had to move cables, they used that. I'm not sure. These are a little more modern phones, something that I would have seen maybe when I was a kid. These Mickey Mouse and Snoopy phones. Now these were fancy. This is something that I always wanted but never had. You would look through the Sears catalogs and Montgomery Ward catalogs and you would see these fancy phones like that. And I never had any. But I always wanted them. I did have a friend that had an NFL football phone like that once. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. Even that is a phone. The very top part up here is where you pick up the phone. I'm not sure if this is somehow something that you had to save milk cartons for, or some kind of stamp or something that was on the milk carton and then send off for it. This is a milk carton phone right here. As you get up close, you can see the earpiece right there. This just kind of hung on the wall, and it's an actual carton. You can see where it's bent right up there. I've never seen one of those, but man, I would have loved to have had that. I love chocolate milk, and of course, way back when, telephones were everything. Would have loved to have had something different like that. There's a goofy phone right there. This is Elvis Presley. It's actually a phone, and the handpiece is right here. And it looks like something that when you ring the phone, he kind of maybe shakes his legs and wiggles back and forth. Because if you look underneath the balls of his feet right there, there's sort of a motor or hinge or something. So I guess he dances when you ring the phone. Something else I've never seen. And then this right here is an M&M's phone, and it looks like it had a headset with it. Now, I'm not sure how any kid kept M&M's in there. Maybe it's just me, but I never would have had M&M's just storing in that. It would have been an empty case. So even though that's a cool phone, I don't think it's anything that I ever would have liked. These right here are phones that were really in style. I remember these in the 80s. And back then you had clear everything. There were clear televisions, clear radios, where you could see all the little circuits. It was definitely heavily desired, and I never had one of those either. I always wanted a telephone line in my own room, but never got one. That is a telephone shoe right back there, and I'm not sure if the earpiece is actually where those little holes are in the top part. It looks like it could be, but maybe that's just part of the sneaker look. Maybe you talk on the bottom. But it makes me think of the old show Get Smart, where he actually would talk in a shoe. This piano phone is pretty cool right there. The piano keys are actually how you dial. This looks like it could be a cell phone, but I don't think it is. It's a tape measure, actually. It actually says Stanley on it. I've never seen a phone like that either. And this Coca-Cola cube right there. Another phone. More of a fancy office phone back there. It's like a commemorative one. It actually says 1776. But I'm loving this Coca-Cola phone right here. How cool is that? Just looks like a cup of Coke. You can obviously see this is from the 80s, because it doesn't say Coca-Cola Classic, so it had to be in the earlier 80s. Something we don't see anymore, really. They're occasionally passed out, but phone books used to be gigantic. This is how you would store your phone book, and this is a little case right here, and it not only stored your phone book, but also had this little cork board where you could put little notes on it and stuff like that, and some were chalk, as you can see in that little directory picture there, but some had cork on it and you could leave notes on it. But on the other side of it, on this side right there, as you can kind of see in the picture there, you had a phone. So it was like an all-in-one station. The family could keep track of where their kids went and stuff like that, make phone calls, all of that. I do remember a lot of kids with these Garfield phones right here, and when you would pick up the phone, these eyes would open. All sorts of old phones in here. This is what they called a donut phone. Very odd and strange. We're now in the cell phone section. Now this is a briefcase cell phone, and he said this is one of the first cell phones, and You could see the price there, costing $5,000 up until 2002. I'm not sure why they even sold those that late. It's not something that I've ever seen. It said they were a one-channel phone, and half the time they didn't work. But you can see some of these other little cell phones there. I remember my grandparents having one like this right here, and they had it in the floorboard of their car in case there was an emergency. They were kind of pulling away from the CB radio and going to this. They never used it for anything but emergencies, so just kind of sat in the floorboard. I remember this is the antenna that they had to have installed on the top of the car so that they could use that cell phone there. No one in my family ever had these brick cell phones, but then these came about. And I remember seeing pictures, even like Hollywood stars, and they might be on a horseback talking on a phone for some reason. And then we go into these type of cell phones. I can remember seeing people on these and just thinking it's so strange. Why do they need to talk on the phone all the time? They didn't text, just talked on the phone. And then of course pagers. My dad carried a pager like that. And there was a time when I had an alphanumeric pager, which I think is like that right down there. And I thought it was so cool because your friends could get a hold of you and leave an alphanumeric message. And then we get into these Nokias. As long as you didn't get these wet, drop them in the toilet bowl or dog water bowl or whatever. These things seemed like you could drop them from 10 feet above and they wouldn't break. They'd just keep working forever. In fact, I had one of those, and eventually I just switched to one of these flip phones because I thought that those were the way to go. And the flip phones never seemed to last as long as what these did. And here's one of these slider phones right there. Or one of those like that never worked well with me. And I'm not a big guy, but I guess my fingers were too big for those keys. So I always felt like I was punching the wrong key on it. So I was never real keen on having one of those phones. These are real tiny little phones, and he said that when you moved to a town, they would give you a large phone and then a small phone like that. Just kind of look like telephone toys. And this is a toy phone set that you used to be able to purchase. So you could act like you were an adult talking on a phone. Because back in the day, they had the telephones up high and kind of out of reach, and it wasn't something for kids. And here we have a board game, much like Monopoly, but just dealing with telephone company and telephones. Look at that intercom system right there. So thanks for joining me today on this little tour of the Telephone Museum. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button and hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this.